At least 4 Americans are free this morning after being taken hostage in Algeria by terrorists. Algerian special forces assaulted a remote natural gas plant that was seized by an al-Qaeda-linked group. The fate of other Americans and foreign workers that were being held hostage is still unclear this morning. The militants that captured them in Algeria said it was retaliation for French military attacks on Islamic extremists in neighboring Mali. As David Martin reports, the U.S. is now offering some help.
The U.S. has agreed to airlift a battalion of French troops and tanks into Mali, part of a military intervention which has stirred up a hornet's nest of al-Qaeda-linked groups in North Africa. According to U.S. intelligence, these groups are likely to strike Western targets again. Rudolph Atala is the Pentagon's former head of counterterrorism for Africa. Do you expect more terrorist attacks?
Yes, these guys are savvy. They've been prepared for a fight, like I said, for a long time, and they're not going to take it lying down. They are going to show that they are capable of putting some pain against the West.
The attack on the gas complex in Algeria was carried out by a group whose leader had warned France against intervening in Mali. And other leaders operating under the umbrella of a group called Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb have dared the U.S. to intervene.
One of the Islamists was taunting the United States, essentially saying, we want the United States to be involved in this fight, like the French. It's like more like, bring it. We're ready for you, so we're prepared to go after you.
With U.S. backing, the French launched airstrikes and began sending in troops last week when it appeared radical Islamic groups, which already control the northern half of Mali, were on the verge of breaking through government defenses across the narrow waist of the country and advancing on the capital. France's defense minister said the operation was designed to prevent Mali from becoming a terrorist state within range of Europe. Even if France succeeds in stopping the advance, radical Islamic groups will still control northern Mali, an area the size of France itself. Defense Secretary Panetta has said there are no plans to put U.S. troops into Mali. But that could change if terrorists there start killing Americans. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
Joining us this morning, Pamela Falk, CBS News Foreign Affairs Analyst. Pam, good morning to you.
Good morning, Charles.
Let's start with what David just mentioned there. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta saying there are no plans to put U.S. troops in Mali. That could change, though, if terrorists start killing Americans. So let's say that happens. What then happens next?
Well, right now it's a difficult situation with difficult solutions, and the strategic importance of Mali is that these terrorist groups can launch attacks against the rest of Northern Africa, West Africa, and Europe from there, and that's why they are being pushed back. What would a U.S. intervention look like? It would basically be under UN supervision. In other words, UN has already mandated, which is unusual these days for the UN, the Security Council, to be in agreement on anything. They've already authorized this international force. It was just going to take too long, and the French decided to go in to stop the advance of these al-Qaeda groups. U.S. would be along with that, but I think it's very unlikely that the U.S. would go in with boots on the ground. It may do more each step of the way. As you saw today, they did say they would assist in intelligence and in transporting the French troops.
How concerned is the U.S. over the tensions now that are rising in northern Africa with these al-Qaeda-linked groups taking over these large territories in these areas?
It's a very large, the swath of land that Al-Qaeda now controls in the north and west of Africa is almost the size of Afghanistan. They are very concerned about it because it's been left somewhat unattended, and it's grown. Now, these aren't only Al-Qaeda groups, they're drug traffickers, and you've seen what happens with drug traffickers when you go after them. However, the idea here was stop the growth. If you leave it alone, it's benign neglect, it will just grow. Now, by taking it on, they've taken on, both the French and the international community have taken on the threat of these al-Qaeda groups going after the U.S. and other countries within Western Europe, within the United States, anywhere.
How does this compare to the terrorists that the U.S. is fighting right now in the Middle East, in Afghanistan particularly? How do they compare? Are they any different?
They're different in the sense it's a lot of different groups. Where in Afghanistan you have the Pakistan Taliban, you've got the Afghanistan Taliban. In the Middle East you've got other groups. These are splinter groups of al-Qaeda, but they've been left unattended for many years, and they keep growing. Now, Mali, unfortunately, was a country of peace. It was a country with a moderate, mainly followers of a moderate Islam, and 16 million people, and they had gotten their first democratic elections. Way back they had gotten the independence from France, and now there was a coup in March. That sort of gave the opening for al-Qaeda and these groups to come in. Why is it different? Because you have so many different groups all combining to try to control the territory. And from firsthand accounts that I have heard, and from the UN Office of Humanitarian Affairs, they've been raping and pillaging entire villages. And so it's a humanitarian crisis, and it's a strategic concern.
And we're certainly going to be watching it. Pamela Falk, CBS News Foreign Affairs analyst. Pam, always good to have you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Terrell.